Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast. Oh, yeah. I had to put in Tom's oh, yeah, because he always does that. I don't know why, but Tom couldn't be here today. So this is Sans Tom, Bancroft Brothers Podcast. So really just Bancroft Brother. We got a really great super guest today. So I'm super excited to talk to her. She is a creator, a show creator. She created Star versus the Forces of Evil. She's here with exclusively here tonight with the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast. Let's get to know Daron Nefcy. Daron Nefcy. I knew I was going to mess that up. Hey, Daron.
Hi. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh my gosh. I got so nervous at the last minute there, just saying your name. Daron, because it's not uncommon, not common, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Daron for a girl.
Yeah, a little unusual.
You are I want to start at the top with just talking about where you came from, because I believe you're a fellow CalArtian. Tom and I both went to CalArts and studied animation there. You did too?
That's right. Yeah, I graduated in 2009. Character animation program, and oh my God, loved it. It was just the best.
Did you go there because were you kind of growing up in animation? Did you kind of like, where's the best place to go? Discover about CalArts, probably online, right? And did you then like figure out all these great people that have been there before you and said, that's the place for me? Or how did it come about?
Kind of, actually, and I'll do my plug here. We'll see if I can find these dudes, because I always bring this up when I talk on things and I've never found them. But I've wanted to do animation since I was a little kid, and I always loved drawing. And I actually was lucky enough at my grade school, and also I should say I grew up in Los Angeles. So I grew up in Los Angeles, okay. And then at my grade school in the fourth grade, there was an after school class that was an animation class that these guys came and taught, and they brought us all these awesome, character turnarounds and all this kind of behind the scenes stuff. And in my mind, what I think they did is I thought they were storyboard artists on Rocko's Modern Life. And, I've had this career in animation I absolutely love, and I would love to find these guys and thank them. But I feel like I've, at this point, because I've been searching, met all the board artists from Rocko's Modern Life, and it doesn't seem to be any of them. So maybe my memory, maybe I didn't know exactly. Anyway, it would have been like 1993, Baylor Elementary in Calabasas, after school class, two guys that work in animation. And in my mind, they rode motorcycles and they were the coolest people ever. So
if you didn't actually see the motorcycles, though.
No, they talked about it. And I was
did they?
Like, oh, this is, I want to
You ride motorcycles and you draw funny cartoons? Yeah.
Like amazing. This is exactly what I want to do with my life. So yeah.
I don't blame you. Yeah, you owe them your life for sure.
I know. Where are they? I can't.
And yet you never got their names, and you've never found them. You've never given them $20 for lunch or bought them a lunch. No, you know what? That's so funny, because I remember doing that myself, speaking at some elementary schools in Los Angeles, but I didn't work on Rocko's Modern Life. I actually went around with Mike Suri, who was the animator on Timon, and so we did like a Puma and Timon talk for a couple elementary schools back in the day.
That's fine, but Baylor Elementary doesn't sound familiar.
No, it doesn't. No.
And this was like a multi-class thing. This was like an after school, like maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 classes or something, right?
I just wanted it to be me, like, like almost like one of those like, Luke, I am your father kind of moments, Well, actually,
I rode a motorcycle.
That's right. And anyway, well, that's cool. So that's how you kind of found out about animation, and you were drawn to it, no pun intended. Were you already, you must have had really, because I got to say, whenever I talk to artists and you talk about like how they got started, usually there's some story about, but my parents weren't really supportive of it or something like that. What about you? You must have had pretty supportive parents that were into that or okay with it.
Yeah, my dad worked as a camera operator. He's retired now, but he worked on TV shows and some movies and stuff. So yeah, none of that was foreign to them. And they were supportive, but also like it was kind of interesting because I was always drawing and they always gave me, lots of time to draw and were encouraging and stuff. But apart from that fourth grade class, I didn't do a lot of art classes or any of that, just like whatever the high school class, which was pretty whatevs. Later in high school, I did a little figure drawing. So I started doing a little bit of that.
That's when it gets serious.
Wow, that's when it gets serious. Yeah. Which is always like a funny thing, I think, for us artist types, where it's like, oh, all of the first naked people I saw were all these figure drawing models. Like,
exactly. So one thing that we all have in common is that we're losers, kind of pathetic, but we've seen naked people earlier than most people because of life drawing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, did life drawing. I actually had like and I talk about this a lot too. I had kind of a rough time in high school, which led to me graduating early. So I actually tested out early.
Oh, nice.
Did not have college plans, but I started going to Santa Monica Community College. And I've always had, I always want to do animation. And SMC at the time had this program that I might be still there. I should look this up, but it was called the Academy of Entertainment and Technology. And you could get an associate's in animation. So I started doing those classes. And when I was doing those classes, everybody there was applying to CalArts. Like it was a lot of people that were, building up their CalArts portfolio, taking classes there. And that got me excited to do it. I went to visit the school, absolutely fell in love. And then that became the goal, was like, I've got to go here.
Did you have a student friend like from the city college that did it also, like the same year, put your portfolio in together or something?
We did. Yeah. And we both got in.
Oh, both got in. That's good.
Yeah. Which is, and actually, you know what? There was a couple people, that I still know, a few friends that were, trying to get into CalArts, and we all ended up in there. So
yeah, I think, at that early age, it just helps to have that posse of people that are totally into the same weird, awkward, geeky thing that you're into, because they tend to be just that support you need to kind of boost you. And it sounds like you had that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely felt like I found my people. And then, getting into the school was just like the most amazing experience, because I don't know when you were there, but there was this kind of funny thing where it was like, we had maybe that orientation week and the classes hadn't really started, but we're all in the dorm rooms and like everybody's looking at each other's sketchbooks.
Yes.
It's just like so nerdy. But
looking at their portfolios and stuff. Yeah.
And you're kind of like it's so exciting to meet all these people that are also like have your same history, where they spent their life drawing and they were always like, I don't know, like the best artists in their class, right? It's like all these people that like kind of have your story, right?
And it was competitive, right? Was it a competitive time too?
But then I also feel like, even though it's all friendly, you're kind of sizing everybody up. Yeah. Like you're like, oh my God, their sketchbook. Oh my God. Yeah. Or like their sketchbook is so good. Oh my gosh, what am I doing here? It's like that whole thing. But yeah, and we got really close, with my class, because you are in the trenches and making the student films. And
yeah, for sure. I remember, isn't that some of your fondest memories? I know it is for me and for Tom. We get real reminiscent on the podcast talking about CalArts, because it was like, you're up at 2 or 3 in the morning and you're just getting giddy and silly, but you got this pressure on you too to get your film done. But it's a shared thing that you're with all your other fellow students that are doing the exact same thing. And I don't know. I had such the fondest experience, and it sounds like you did too. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely one of the highlights of my life. I loved it. I had so much fun.
You graduated from CalArts, you said? Oh, you got the degree and everything. Good for you.
Yeah. I did the 4 years. And it is so special. I think part of what makes it so special is that the campus, like, it's open 24/7. So you can be there at 3 a.m. You can be, and everybody, it's just nice to meet people everyone's so passionate about the same thing. And animation is such a niche type of like you really have to love it. It's hard, so you really have to love it too.
You really do. I teach at a university now, Azusa Pacific University, and teach animation there. I'm always telling my students, the freshmen, when they first get in, I sit them down and we're like, okay, getting to know each other. Yeah. Hey, so just so you know, this is going to be a lot of work. And I hit them up early with just a little speech about, this is one of the most time-consuming things that you can do in the entertainment industry. It takes a lot of proficiency and skill. You're going to draw more this year than you probably have your whole life, that whole thing. And by the end, they're just like, wide-eyed, like in terror. I love that. It's such a good feeling. Anyway.
Well, and I think it leads to a good group of people, I find. Like I I think that because it is like this thing that's hard and very specific, it's like, and everybody who's doing it is really passionate. It kind of like, my husband works in live action, and I feel like you run into like also a lot of wonderful people, but I think more people that are maybe just in it for the money or in it for this or in it for, I don't know. It's not how it is in animation. It's
well, and
like,
the egos too. I always tell people, I think animation is more family friendly. I mean, let's face it, we mostly work on projects that are enjoyed by young kids and adolescent in maturity anyway, adolescents, immature people, and so it's just kind of a fun world that we're in, and it's harder to get, I think, that big ego that you see in live action too. I don't know, that's my
yeah.
impression.
Well, and I love that too. Like I love making stuff for kids. Like that was always the most exciting thing to
Yeah,
me. I think in some ways too, just because I think about this a lot. Like the stuff that you watch as a kid really sticks with you, right?
yeah,
Like the things you love as a kid are like kind of with you your whole life, and they could actually really, you know, I think influence you and influence your life. But I think when you're older, like I think about a lot of the stuff I watch now. I don't know. I'm probably watching like I could probably get through a show in a couple weeks, and then a few weeks after that, I'm not thinking about it. I'm on to the next thing, on to the next thing. I don't know. It doesn't stick with you and affect who you
right.
are. I think the way. So I really think like it's this big responsibility to make awesome things for kids because they get so much more out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they're the true blue fans, right? And speaking of which, I want to get to you as the show creator because what you did is nothing more than miraculous and wonderful in creating Star versus the Forces of Evil for Disney. And I want to get into a little bit of how that came to be. But when you were at Cal Arts, what year was it again? What was the kind of main years that you were there? 90s?
2005 to 2009.
Oh, okay. Oh, 2000. Oh, yeah, much later. So a lot of folks had come before you at Cal Arts and had started shows. Was there kind of a pressure of, or at least maybe an open door at the time to, as a student, start creating shows and concepts and stuff? Where was everybody kind of doing that at the time?
I mean, I don't know about everybody, but it's one of those things that I think is so cool about getting to make your own film is, I think most people come into Cal Arts as people that, really want to draw, really want to work in animation, but might not know as much about like what are the specific jobs, what kind of jobs can I get? Do I want to do backgrounds? Do I want to do characters? Do I want to write? Like where do I want a storyboard? Like where do I fit in?
Yeah.
So while I was figuring that, and I always, I like when I was a kid, I was writing my own comics and stuff too. And I had a couple of friends in middle school. We used to write scripts on the weekends. Like we would write the show I don't know, we had a show idea and we would write scripts. So I think I always was like, oh, it'd be really like fun to do a show. Like I've kind of always wanted to do that. And then when I was doing my student films, I really found that I liked doing everything. Like I didn't feel like I had like I liked like doing this overall sort of vision. And and one of the things I think about a lot, was Frank Terry like when you were at Cal Arts?
No, he came in
Okay.
later. Yeah, I'm much older than you, just so you know. Yeah, I was like, class number 5 maybe or 6.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
know, something like that. Yeah, we were there in like the almost 90s. It was like 89 or something like that.
Oh,
So
very,
yeah.
very cool.
So
Oh,
yeah,
Frank.
Bob Winquest. Bob Winquest was the guy that ran the program.
Oh, nice, nice. Well, Frank Terry, awesome guy, just a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful person. And he was definitely like a mentor to me at the school, and it was really great. Like one, like because I'm always like amazed by this. Like there was one time I was meeting with him, and he was like, "You have a very specific style. You need to keep pursuing what you're doing. You're gonna have a hard time finding a job out of school,
Ooh.
but keep like he's like, but I think you're gonna run a show." Like he told me that he's like, "I think you're gonna have your own vision because you have a really specific voice, right?" And that was really cool. And it completely like completely what happened. It was financial crisis. It took me a year to find a job. I was freaking out. And then, yeah, I mean, and eventually I did get Star going. And Star actually I pitched when I was in Cal Arts. Like it took a long,
Oh,
like
really?
that process took many years, and the show was in different studios. And yeah, just a couple years after graduating, I got to make the pilot at Disney. So that was
Wait,
really
was one of
amazing.
your
And I just
films based on, or was Star based on one of your student films?
no, but
Okay.
Yeah, so the story with Star was it was between my second and third year at CalArts. Robert Zetti and Craig McCracken were running this thing called Cartoon Institute, a Cartoon Network, where they were accepting pitches, and they were, going to do like a whole bunch of pilot shorts. And I'd heard about it because, of course, the other thing that's great about going to a place like CalArts is like people that are your friends that graduated that are just a couple years older than you are now working in the type of jobs that you want to get. So,
Yeah.
so through friends, they knew I wanted to pitch, and they told me about Cartoon Institute, and I was like, oh, awesome. I'm going to put a pitch together. And I put together Star, it was a really early version of Star, but that was the very first, pitch I put together. And I pitched to Craig and Ron, and they were so awesome and gave me great notes and were really encouraging. And I got to the point where I boarded it, but then I kind of kept getting lucky with Star, right? Because even though it kept getting rejected, to right where I still had it, So it was like I boarded it, but they didn't animate a pilot, so I got the idea back, right?
Okay.
And then so it was a Cartoon Network, and then I had the next, okay, and then Rob was like, I think you should pitch to Nick, and he gave me contacts there. And then during my fourth year at CalArts, I took it to Nickelodeon and did a very short with that, not a pilot short, but just like a 1 or 2 minute short. And then they ultimately didn't pick it up at that time. But again, I got it back. That one, they hung on to the idea for a year, but then I got it back, and then I had, graduated, and I was finally working. I was working at Warner Brothers, was my first job, on a show called Mad, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got the idea back for Star, and then I brought it to Disney and started that development process, which took a few years.
Yeah.
And but I, and I really believed in it, and I pitched other things too. Like that year that I didn't have Star, I pitched a whole bunch of other ideas that, didn't go anywhere, but Star kind of kept coming back. It was like, oh, this, there's something really special about this. And it was amazing. The most personal one. So I just kept feeling like, okay, I just got to keep trying,
Well, I want to hear more about why it was personal, first of all, but actually, first I want to ask you, when you were at CalArts, that I think a lot of students are probably responding like I am right now, going, that's amazing that while you were a student, you were developing a pitch for a TV show and pitching it, getting out there successfully, putting it in front of executives, getting feedback, doing storyboards, getting ready for a pilot possibly, and then the back and forth and all that kind of stuff. But over the time that you were doing that, was there other people in your class that were like, oh yeah, that's Daron over there. She's the one that thinks she's going to get a sold pitch and stuff while she's here at CalArts. Was there a little jealousy going on, or was that pretty common? Did you see other students doing that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm sure other people have pitched something. But it's funny. I didn't think about that. If people were like, what is she doing? I'm also crazy. Like, I'm like a really kind of like workaholic, like, and I've gotten a lot better. Like I would get, like when I was going to do these pitches, because I hadn't done it, I was like, oh, I'm so nervous. Like, I'm really, really nervous. Like, I just need to practice like a crazy person. So, and a lot of people will remember this, right? That were there. Cause what I did is in the big figure drawing room. I after classes, I pinned up all the storyboards that I was going to pitch to Craig and Rob. And I just kept, anybody walking through the hallway, I kept dragging in other students. Okay, let me pitch this to you. Let me pitch this to you. Does this make sense? And I just had the whole thing memorized, right? Like, because that was what, and when I was pitching my early Bibles, on Star, different projects, I would just have the whole thing memorized. Because then if I got nervous, I could just like literally, do the whole thing. But I got better at it, and that's a funny thing about show running too, is like I never thought about how much public speaking I would have to do. Like I ended up early on Star having to do like interviews or like stuff for Disney where I would have to like present in front of the whole studio and stuff, and it was like so terrifying. But
oh man, it seems like you'd be great at it though.
I got better at it. Right?
Yeah. You grew. Yeah. Well, what made Star? I want to get back to that question of what was so personal to you about this concept over the other ones, Star and the Forces of Evil?
It's really Star Butterfly, like the character of her. And the first version of Star was very different than what ended up being the show. It definitely developed in some different directions, and like I said, I got great notes. Like when I brought it to Disney, they wanted to push it in a different direction, and I went with it, and that was really fun. But the original version with Star Butterfly was a fourth grade girl who didn't have any friends, but was very like she basically thought she was Sailor Moon, and I loved Sailor Moon as a kid. Like that was like
You're a
my
big fan.
big fan, favorite thing. So the original concept of Star was she was basically like this girl who thought she was fighting evil all the time and thought she was standing up for the little guy and would like say magic spells, but then just like throw a handful of glitter in a bully's face or something, and then he would maybe like hallucinate a thing. And and a lot of it, it's funny, a lot of the characters were in that one. Like there was like Flying Princess Ponyhead was there, but she was a figment of Star's imagination who she would talk to. And in Sailor Moon, the cats can talk. So it's like Star Butterfly, like was convinced her cat could talk, and she would have these conversations with the cat, but the cat was always just trying to get away from her. Right. So like, so it kind of had, that energy, which is something is definitely very personal, right?
It was about a girl that really wanted to be Sailor Moon or an anime kind of character, right?
Yes.
Which sounds like was your fantasy at a certain time at a point in your life.
It probably still is.
Okay, hey, that's all right. Hey, I'm with you there. So, and I've read that you had a lot of different influences growing up. Obviously, Sailor Moon, which you've already mentioned, but it sounds like you were really into anime growing up, and I've heard Scott Pilgrim was a big influence too,
definitely,
right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love the movie. I've never read the comic book actually. Dragon Ball Z and things like that, right? So you always liked action, adventure, right? World building is huge in your show. But those are all influences of great, big cast of characters, lots of specific elements and worlds that those creators got to design, and then you got to do that. Was that one of the bigger kicks for you, was to be able to create that world that Star exists in and gets to travel through?
Oh, definitely. And I had so much fun. Yeah. And that's part of when I brought it to Disney, right? I had that earlier version, and and again, I think I'm just like I'm always a person who's like, okay, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to go in and like try really hard, and like the worst thing people can say is no, but like I'm always going to try, right? So I remember I had that version, the earlier version. I brought it to Disney. I had a couple pitches, and when you pitch to execs, it's like you're always kind of, you start low and then you kind of level up to the next boss with your pitches, right? So I had gone through several rounds at Disney, and it was at this place where they were like, yes, we love this. This is great. You're going to meet Eric Coleman, right? He was like in the big boss in development at that point, who was approving shows and whatever. Like, you're going to meet Eric. He loves this. He loves the show. It's so great. I'm like, do I need to pitch this to him? No, he's seen everything. He really likes it. You're just going to like meet him. Right. So I go into that meeting, and I'm the first person there because I'm always the first person there. And and then one of the junior execs comes in, and he's like, hey, yeah, so we've been thinking about this idea. We love it. Oh, it's so great. But like, we were wondering, what if the magic was real, and what if the characters were older? Like, we want this to be like high school characters, and we want the magic to be real, which is 100% a different show, right? Yeah. But he comes in and says this, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So I'm like, all right, like I'm like wrapping my head around that. And then Eric Coleman comes in and sits down, and he goes, okay, so what's this about? so
never heard of it before. Yeah, so what is this?
So I'm like,
is this a cartoon? Is this cartoon? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we're just like, hey, pitch it to me. What is this? And I was like, oh, so then I, for whatever, the terrible move, stupid move, for whatever dumb reason, I was like, I'm just going to like ad lib and like pitch this, like it's this new version they're talking about. And of course it was a mess.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, yeah, well, the art is really cool. And like, yeah, cool. Well, talk to you later. And I was like, ooh, so I went home and like, I rewrote it in a week and did a bunch of new art and did a bunch of new stuff. And that version I did that week is what the show was. So she's a, now Star Butterfly, the magic's real. She's in high school. She's a magical princess from another dimension. And that's why she has these powers, and she has this magic wand that was, the birthright from all these different queens. And, as a foreign exchange student, Marco was a character in the first one, but very different. So it's like, okay, she's going to live with this boy, Marco. And of course, that relationship was so much fun. And yeah, and oh my gosh, why not? Flying Princess Ponyhead. She's real. She's just a flying unicorn head now. So, it kind of like led to this really like wacky, it was kind of the same wacky universe that was in, the younger Star Butterfly who was not magical. Like the one in her imagination was just like, okay, now it's real, but she's come to Earth as a foreign exchange student. So
you actually took the notes and went there and recreated the show and got it sold and bought, and it became the successful show that it is. That's kind of a new twist on that story. I've heard the story of, I pitched it, and then the executives come in and they always have these crazy notes, of course, because they don't know what they're talking about. But in this case, you really took it to heart and really found something there, huh? And it was additive. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always think, with any note that comes from anybody, I think it's good to and obviously there were certainly things that I fought for and didn't change on the show. And of course, as it went along, it's like, I think you always have to choose your battles and follow your instincts. But, I would always try to, and I still do, I always try to go okay, can this note make this better?
Yeah, like what's the root of it, right? Are you always trying to go, okay, what are they really trying to say? Maybe because oftentimes executives will give you very specific ideas, and it's not the ideas that they want you to hear as much as like the intent behind them oftentimes, right?
Yeah, there's that, but also, hey, a lot of times they've got good ideas too, and it's like, it's good to, I think, consider, because I do think it, it made it, I actually think doing either show would have been really fun. But I really like where the show went, and it really led to it being this thing that could be this 4-season epic, and that I kind of kept getting to add to in all these really amazing ways, and that my crew got to add to too. Having this magical universe really gave everybody that came onto the crew so much space to invent and get creative. And I don't know, I love it. I think it really, I'm so glad in that instance that I didn't just go, no, I'm not changing this, and this is, not what I want. I actually feel like it made me rethink about it and make it better. And also, if you think about it, when I had first pitched it at Cartoon Network, I think that was even before Adventure Time was airing. I think that the scope of what you could do was a little smaller in TV. And as much as I wanted to do something new and inventive and something that was very me, I also wanted to make something that a network would want, right? You're always making something that you're, hey, I don't want to make this by myself in my garage. I want to make something that is going to get picked up by one of these networks. So, now it was a few years later, and it was like, oh yeah, you know what? Why not? I can make this big and epic and magical. And there's actually a road to do that now. And the networks are interested in that. So that was really cool.
What a great, that it really was a great challenge that they put before you. Let's make it even bigger, right? In a lot of ways, right? Let's make it more mature in a lot of ways. And and then speaking of your crew, you had a really great crew that you worked with. Many of them have gone on to be show creators, right? And create their own things. Voice talent was absolutely wonderful too. What was that like? Well, speaking of your crew, let's go with them first. What was it like? Did you get to, kind of groom your own crew? Did you pick them out? Were you kind of given people? How did that work at the time?
Yeah, for the most part, I did get to pick the crew. And I would say, especially as the show went on, I got a lot of creative control, and I got to hire some really amazing people. Definitely I got to give a shout out to Aaron Hammersley, Dominic Bisignano, Tyler Chen, wonderful, wonderful people. My directors, I had it's her last name is tough, but Sabrina Cantagno, she's, how do you see her last name? I'm gonna be so bad if I butcher that, but she's amazing. Amelia Lorenz, wonderful, wonderful people all around on my crew. And I got really lucky. And I got a lot of people that were Sabrina, first time directing. And of course, she's been going on to do wonderful things. I got to give Amelia her first episode to direct. I got to make Dominic and Aaron like supervising producers, and they were so incredible. So like, yeah, like and it's, and it's amazing too. Okay, so it's amazing too how like with the show, I think sometimes you're trying to hire the best people you can,
Yeah.
and you're hiring who's available, and it was really cool that like I got to get a little flexibility as the show went on to like move people up into different positions, right? Like
Yeah.
Dominic came on as a board artist in my first season, and he was like the I think the sixth board artist we hired, and he just got the show. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like this guy just like gets the voice that I see for this show. And then I got to like move him up into more of like an overall role where he was helping me more, in additional seasons. So like that was really great.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, and this was a time when we were just starting to see more diversity of females getting more leadership roles like yourself. Obviously, I've heard that you were like one of the first female directors or creators of a new show at that time. Is that right?
Yeah. Which is so funny. Like I felt like right when the show first happened, it was like every single thing was like, oh, Disney's got a female showrunner, which I didn't even know going in that was like,
Yeah, right.
a rare thing or something. And then I felt
Yeah.
like it was like the only thing I talked about for a long time, which was a little frustrating. But yeah, apparently Pepper Ann was a female showrunner, and that was the only other one. And then I was the second one, which was
Oh, okay.
several years later, which is crazy for
Yeah.
animation. I don't know about the live action, but
But it sounds like you had a really diverse group in the way of males and females working side by side doing all the same kind of stuff, which is at the time, I think that was kind of revolutionary, wasn't it? Is it something that you pushed for, kind of that equality in the staff and the crew?
My goal was always just to hire the best people, that I could find. And then my crew just happened to, I think we were maybe about 50-50 male and female on the crew. And like my board teams, I mean, for a minute I had 12 board artists, and I think 10 of them were women. So like that was, and we're a
Oh,
board
wow.
driven show. So,
Yeah.
so a lot of the writing is coming from the board. So yeah, that was like very, very cool. And again, really not intentional. I mean, to be honest, I just was finding people that were like the best people I could find. And, that's how it happened,
I love that you brought up the creative approach of that you were a board driven show, because I think, and for the listeners out there, maybe you could talk a little bit about what that means. I know there's definitely script driven shows and then board driven shows, yours being the latter. And what that means is that it's tends to be more creative and off the cuff, right? What does that mean to you, and how did that work out?
Yeah, so yeah, board driven, yeah, which is kind of a crazy thing to do, but it's awesome. So yeah, so if you think about like I don't know, SpongeBob is board driven, but Simpsons is scripted, right? It's like there's some things that I think just lend themselves a little bit more one way or the other, and I think that there's benefits to both. And what I really like about board driven, so again, okay, so then to back up of like how does that work? So that means like I have writers that are writing outlines. So I would work with the writers, and we would do like 2 to 3 page outlines, and then generally a board team of 2 people would then execute the outline and write the dialogue. A lot of dialogue and the jokes and stuff, which is huge. And I think that, to me, it almost like lends itself to kind of the old school animation, like almost like Looney Tunes or stuff like that, where it's like, hey, that stuff wasn't scripted, was it? I mean,
That goes back to Walt Disney. I mean,
because
come
I
on.
told Disney, yeah, it's like,
I mean, that's how Walt started. He would just pitch it to the story crew, right? Just verbally pitch a Snow White, basically. And they're like, okay, and start drawing.
And I think it is such a special and such an amazing thing because you're writing visually, and to me, how that ended up with stuff on Star that was cool is I just felt like our comedy was always really character based. Star had like these really great funny acting. She had a lot of like weird magic stuff. And the show was kind of weird and quirky. I think because it had all these different writers in a way that I think if we had it scripted, we wouldn't have gotten that. It would be a little more plotty. There'd be a little bit more setup and punchline with the jokes. Like I love board driven for the fact that it gets to be this big collaboration. And the way that I would set up the show is we would do and my God, kudos to my board artist, because yeah, it's a lot of work doing a board driven show. Which, by the way, for whatever reason, I've been criticized for having a board driven show on the
Is that
Animation
right?
Guild Facebook page. I have no idea why, because it's like, A, I didn't invent it. B, to be honest, Disney too, it was their suggestion to make it board driven, and I was behind it. So I don't know. I mean, I would feel sad if there weren't board driven shows anymore. Like, I do think that like there's space for scripted shows and there's space for board driven shows. But it is like a different skill set, right? So like also on Star, I would say our boards were not the most polished all the time. Like, we weren't like, my goal was never like, let's like, do really crazy angles or really like and again, some people would do these big epic fight scenes and stuff like that, but that wasn't like, our goal was like, hey, keep the board simple, things are going to be a little rough, it wasn't like, the emphasis was on the writing.
On the ideas, right? You wanted it rough so that you could keep it malleable, right? As long as possible. But did that cause problems because you had an overseas team, I'm guessing, that did the production, right?
Yeah, but like, oh gosh, and we were at a couple of different studios. But the majority of the show was done in Korea at Rough Draft Korea, which of course has done a ton of shows, and they've done a ton of board driven shows. So this was like right up their alley. And then Sugar Cube, which we were their first show. They were a really lovely studio in Korea. But yeah, so they were kind of used to that. So we would sort of organize it like, we would have the team do like a story pitch at 1 week, which would be like, basically just do like beat boards, like maybe do like, I don't know, 12 to 20 drawings of just like, here's the episode broken down. And that was a really great opportunity, because I was always really open, like, hey, I want input from everybody. I want, if you have a creative idea or something different you want to do with this episode, it's like, hey, here's the chance to like pitch it out. Let's take a look. We can all look at it together, me and the writers and, my supervising producers, and like, let's all talk about it when it's early. So if we're going to make changes to the outline, let's talk about doing it then.
Right. Yeah.
My goal was always like, if we're going to let's hit like the bigger changes should happen at the beginning and less big changes as you go along.
You hope, right?
You hope, always the goal. And then, they would do like a rough pitch like a couple weeks in, like at a midpoint, and then they would pitch to the whole crew at like 6 weeks. And then we'd throw it into Animatic, and we'd always, change stuff up, and we'd always keep writing in the Animatic, But yeah, it was this really collaborative thing. And one of the things that I love is just, a lot of the ideas that just came from the crew. Like I think about, Dominic created Glossaric just as a foil in that episode where, in Muberty, where like Marco's trying to like get to the spell and, Glossaric gets his way. Love that character. So it's like, okay, let's keep him going in the show. Justin Lee did this incredible drawing of Eclipse. He was boarding that episode where they go into the wand, and, he did that drawing of Eclipse, being held by the monster love, and the little poem about Queen Eclipse. Oh,
really? Wow.
I loved her so much that then she became this major plot for multiple seasons. So yeah, I had so much fun doing Star for those reasons. It also made Star really, I think, a challenging show, because we did have these epic plot lines and all these different people writing on it, and hey, maybe these guys are working on an episode that deals with something that's, over in this episode, and these things have to like speak to each other. So I will say it was always like a little chaotic, but it was always really fun.
How do you do that? Okay, so in today's reality, COVID breaks out. Everybody's working at home. Does that work still? Can you do a show like that?
Thank goodness I didn't have to do that. That sounds
because you were all in the same room, and you were probably pulling people out of their cubicles or whatever at any given moment. Hey, come over here. We want to talk about this, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I felt like by the end of the day, my head would always be like putty, because I'm like, okay, wait, editing. Okay, we're doing this. Oh, it'd be really fun if we did this. Oh, shoot, this board team is doing something that relates to that. Hey, guys, you need to see that. Like, yeah, just like, because, you're working on all these different episodes at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and like, God, kudos to our post team. I mean, we really got to do a lot of Disney has some, and I don't know if every studio has this, but I really loved, like, we had TDs, we had technical directors, and like I could, once we got the animation back, easily change characters' mouth shapes, easily do lip sync, easily. I mean, we could like make changes like all the way until a couple weeks before it aired, and like it was cool. Like it was like we had a lot of flexibility in that way.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really fun.
It sounds like a show that could be really stressful if it wasn't so fun.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely had its moments, but I think what helped too is like the team really cared about the show and was really wanted
invested.
It was really invested. I think really cared about the characters, and yeah, it was. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't have to run it during COVID though. That sounds insane.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And I really feel for the showrunners that have had to do that this past year. My gosh.
I know, because animation has gone on. Some live action stuff hasn't. Your husband probably knows about that more than I do, but certainly animation has continued to thrive and grow and is going on, and they're doing unscripted and scripted and storyboard, whatever. Wow, this is a ton. I love digging in deep into your process and what that was like for you. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that the show is done now. Was it canceled? Was it just, did times change? What stopped it? I know there's a huge following because I've seen it online. People love this show. So there was probably a lot of people that were surprised when season 4 ended and there was no season 5. Was there things, this is a very loaded question, I guess, with a lot of different elements, but was there things that you wanted to do with season 5 that you didn't get to do? What's the fan response been like? And then I just want to hear about what's next.
Well, we got 4 seasons, which was amazing at Disney, like at the time. Like I had looked, I mean, I'm not gonna have the exact number anymore, but I had looked it up at some point, and it was like within the past 17 years, there's only been 2 other shows that did a 4th season in TV. Like it was like they never did a 5th season. I actually think now they did for Doc McStuffins, but at the time, I don't think they had ever done a 5th season for anything. So the fact that we were getting a 4th season, I was like, this is, and they're funny. Like I think that they don't. And maybe things are changing now. I think things have changed a lot, even in the past like 2 years. But I think that they really didn't want you to know that it was definitely done, just in case for some reason they wanted to do more. So it was like hard for me to nail down an exact answer. But I was like pretty sure if we got a 4th season, that would be it. So when we got the 4th season, I planned for an ending. And I really like the ending. And a lot of fans do really like the ending. A lot of fans don't. It's mixed, which I actually think is what you want. To me, like an ending that everybody is like, yeah, that was fine, is, probably not the best. Some people love it. Some people don't love it. My goal with it was, I wanted it to sort of be all about Star and Marco in the end. And I wanted, like, the show was always so chaotic. I kind of wanted to end it on a chaotic note. I didn't want every single question answered. I didn't want it all wrapped in a bow. The way that things go now, people get nostalgic in like 2 years. I would love to do like a Star movie eventually, or maybe some comics, or maybe anything. I mean, if anything came along, I am so there for Star. I think it'd be so much fun to play with it. So I wanted to have something that was an ending, but wasn't an ending, and I don't know if you've seen the ending, but it's like a lot of the stuff get wrapped up, but then a whole new set of problems, appear. And I think that that's really fun and in the spirit of the show.
Yeah, so, and it's like life too, right? Not everything has a bow around it, and it could open itself up to some other things, right? Now, so theorize with me, and maybe you don't have to. Maybe you know more than I do on this, but Disney Plus, I keep hearing, is not only ramping up, but they're getting voraciously always looking for new projects and stuff. Why not Star? Why couldn't Star hit Disney Plus and come back in some way, right?
I don't know. I mean, it's, the only thing I could do is put it out there that I'd be interested, and that's what I've done. And, really it's up to them. I mean, they own the show, and they I really have to give Disney so much credit for supporting it for 4 seasons and really, giving me a lot of freedom with it, which was very cool. And I think part of that too was like I was on the weird like Disney XD network, like there were
Yes.
some which I think had less viewership, so that was a little unfortunate. But the plus on that is I think there were less like eyes as far as it being like this has to be a specifically Disney thing in this or that way. I think they were always trying to figure out like how they could do different
Yeah.
things with that network, or
And
so
what their brand was, right? They were probably trying
yeah.
to discover that, even though they knew, because I always heard Disney XD was always like, okay, it's a little bit more boy driven action adventure version of Disney Channel, or whatever. But when you wasn't it true though that when this first got greenlit, it was greenlit through Disney Channel? Did it become
Yeah.
Disney XD at one point?
Yeah, because it was going to be channel, which I mean would have been cool, but they at some point decided that all the animation was going to be on XD, so then it kind of got scooched over there, and then it did really well. Like we were like I think we were pretty much like the number one show on XD, so that's how I kept getting like additional seasons and stuff. Which was very cool. And yeah, I guess XD was a little more boy, although Star, I don't know. But I guess what was cool about Star too is like boys liked it as much as girls. Like it always, seemed
Yeah.
to do really well with everybody, despite having, the main character with the heart cheeks who was a princess and whatever. But she's so cool, like I think she's such
Yeah.
a fun character, and people love Marco and they love Marco being the nice boy. So all those things,
Yeah, it still played
yeah.
really well, even in that format, in that place, on that platform. Certainly would, and this is for all the Disney executives that listen to the podcast. Certainly would be great on Disney Plus. Probably be huge and bring in a ton of subscribers, I would guess. That's just my own plug. Um, something to think about.
It would be fun to do like the movie special on Disney
The
Plus.
movie.
Absolutely.
No, so you
Yeah.
guys never did a movie though. You never did like, because that's kind of become a popular thing, right? To do a longer like, isn't the movies tend to be like 3 or 4 episodes put together, right?
I mean, we did do some of that for sure. Like we did a really big end of third season, beginning of fourth season that all kind of melded together and were super fun. And then of course our epic finale of the fourth season was like I think like 6 episodes that all attached.
Yeah.
So we did get to do. I feel like we got to do some movies. I mean, it would be fun to do, but yeah, hey, maybe eventually. I mean, right now though, so as far as things going on now, is
Yeah.
I'm doing 2 pilots with Nickelodeon that I'm really excited about. And I'm also, I have a development deal with them, so I'm also helping out on like different projects and that I would be excited to work on if one of them goes. So, a lot of like really exciting things going on, and we'll see. I feel like the career I would like to have is I'd like to keep pushing my own ideas, and it would be lovely to do another show eventually.
Yeah. I mean, it can be tough. It was I'm always familiar with the Nine Old Men since I'm a Disney guy from the past. But it was Ward Kimball that used to say the biggest curse that he experienced in his career was becoming famous. His most famous character that he's known for, he did when he was like 21. It was like the first project he worked on. And that was Pinocchio, where he did Jiminy Cricket. And he gets, to this day, well, he's dead now. Sorry, guys. But to up until recently, when he was still alive, he would always go to conventions, and that was what people wanted him to draw or sign a picture of, was Jiminy Cricket, and he almost became a little bitter towards it.
Mm.
Do you think you would ever be bitter towards Star being, your first big show?
No, I hope not. I mean, I love Star so much and she's so special. I hope people don't, I have a tough time with social media sometimes. And it was different when I started on the show, and it's such a
Yeah.
different thing now. And I would encourage anybody who's about to get a show to really think about how you want to present your social media, because it goes from like, this is some fun, stupid thing I do with my friends, to, oh my God, now I have 1 million followers from all over the world. And I'm not 1 million. Let's back that up. I don't have that many, but a fair amount of people that I don't know that are fans of the show. And, there is something funny where it's like, oh, whatever drawing I post, unless it's Star, it doesn't get as many views, or it doesn't get as many likes or as many. And I think that could, get to somebody too, or you're like, oh, if I want to like make all these fans, I have all of a sudden happy, I could just draw Star all day. But I don't know. I guess I haven't really tried catering anything to them. And yeah, I don't know if I should or I shouldn't.
Yeah,
And then I
I mean,
also
and
feel
that's
like, and then I
you're an
also feel like
artist.
it's,
You're
yeah,
an artist. That's not challenging, right?
and then I also feel like at some point I commented a few times, and I hope again, I feel like it was maybe taken the wrong way. It's just like, hey, I can, because everything I would post, I get a million comments that are like season five, and I've tried to a few times to be like, yo, out of my control. You can comment on Disney, or like email them, talk to them.
Yeah.
I don't own the show, and but then it's really funny because now it's become like if somebody now posts like, hey, make season five, then they'll get a bunch of comments from like other fans that are like, leave Daron alone. She has no control over that. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like this
They,
whole
they stick
spiraling.
up for
Like,
you.
oh
Yeah.
my God. Like you don't need to do that either. It's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's face it. Social media is where a lot of people live, and they're
Well,
they're
especially
very
right now, they're all stuck
opinionated.
at home.
Oh, I know. So you finished your last season, and what was it like right after that for you? Was that a difficult time? Was that exciting? Were you just like margaritas on the beach all day long? Were you celebrating? What was it like for you after it ended?
Good and bad. I mean, I think, after 4 seasons, I was definitely ready to, at least take a break. I was kind of feeling, I mean, I hate to say like, I was kind of feeling done, but like, yeah, a little bit, I was kind of feeling like, okay, we're wrapping this up. And also, it's such a slow death, such like a sad, slow death because
Yeah.
I had this crew that I loved so much. And then of course, I mean, almost a year before the show was over, it's like, oh, my writers are done. And then like, oh, a couple months later, now the board teams that I love are starting to be done. Okay, now it's just me and the art team. Okay, now the art team is done. Okay, and now I'm just like working with the editors. And by the end of the show, it's just like me and my line producer and my post editor, and it's just
Right.
like
Right.
3 people. And then like they start moving new people that for the next show into your section
Yeah.
that you've had
Yeah.
and taking down the decorations, and you're just still there finishing it up. So yeah, I mean, by the time it was done, it was feeling a little like, okay.
It's very anticlimactic, isn't it? It's not like,
Yeah.
it's not like being on a set of a movie and it's like, your last shot, the what do they call it? The martini shot, and everybody like, salutes you and it's a big deal, right? Yeah.
No, this is a slow, yeah, so then, yeah, I remember that last week, my final records with a couple of the, the different characters, and then I went to Italy for a month with my husband. So
Oh,
that
there you
probably got
go.
my mind off things too.
That's great. And that was pre-COVID, right before, right?
Yes. Oh, thank goodness.
So
Yeah.
you
That
finished like
turned
a
out.
year before COVID started, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's right. It was May of 2019. We were in Italy, and and then it was like I wanted to do a big trip, and then I wanted to like to have a baby. So we were working on that, and then by the way, did not plan to have a baby in the middle of COVID. That was I feel like I
That's
have to say that I have a friend who had a baby at the same time, and she's like, yeah, I feel the same way. Like for some reason, I feel like I need to be like, I wasn't bored. Like I didn't like this
I had other things to
planned.
do. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but it's I mean, life goes on, and there's a lot of people graduating and having babies and getting married and you name it, and dying, unfortunately, all during COVID. It's all happening.
All during COVID. Well, and in some ways, like that ended up being really lucky timing because like an infant, you're kind of home anyway. So like, I feel like, and then like I've been able to go back to work. I went back to work a couple months after maternity leave, and it's been like nice, like my husband does live action, so that's been slow. So he's been hanging out with the baby a lot during the day. My husband is wonderful, and
of course,
and then I've been working, but I haven't had that like, oh, I'm leaving my baby. Like I've just been able to, when I want to see him, I can go into the house. I'm saving time, not driving. Like I don't know. It's like gosh, I hope one of the changes after this is that they let new parents work from home for that first year. I mean, that's really how it should be. I hope that's one of the changes that, yeah.
Well, hey, I'm from that generation when, guys didn't get maternity leave at all. And I love seeing, I have younger friends that are now having kids and stuff, and they're talking about their maternity leave. And I'm like, dang, I wish I had that, But I love that. I mean, the world's changing, and not all of it's bad. Some things are actually very good.
Yeah. Well, I just hope that there's more flexibility moving forward. I mean,
Yeah.
again, like I would not want to run a show from home. That sounds really hard. And kudos to everybody that's been having to do that. But I think having a little bit more flexibility of like, yeah, at least having, days at home, especially when you have kids, I feel like now we all have these work setups that we've done in our houses and we've all proven we can work from home. So I hope there's a little more flexibility moving forward.
Well, give me one professional and one personal thing. We're going to start to wrap up here because I just want to be respectful of your time and the baby and all that. But so as you look to the future now, because you definitely are, you're in the future now working. What's one thing creatively that you're looking forward to? And then what's one thing personally that you're looking forward to?
Ooh, creatively and personally looking forward to. Um, yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because I've got these pilots, but of course I don't know if they'll get picked up, but I'm very excited about both of them. They're both very different.
Yeah.
Which and it would be so much fun to do either one because it would just, I think, bring me into a completely different place. So yeah, I would definitely say I'm looking forward to that. Also I have a little, I can't talk about it, but tomorrow there'll be a little announcement about a little surprise project I got to do.
Well, so if we're fans on your Instagram, we'll discover what that is.
Yeah. Supposedly I can talk about it tomorrow. So a little surprise.
Well, this podcast is going to come out in a couple of weeks, so this will have happened in the past. Yeah, I'm sure we were all very excited though. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's a little side thing I got to do, which was really awesome.
Okay.
And then personally, I am really looking forward to, the thing that has been a bummer about having a baby during COVID is like, didn't get the baby shower, didn't get to go anywhere pregnant. My mom didn't get to see me pregnant. I didn't get to like show off my new baby to my friends, none of that stuff. But soon the baby's going to be 1 and we're planning a big birthday party. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be really nice.
And I love the first birthday party with a baby because they usually always make a cake, right? Just for tradition and get them started on the sugar loading up, and they never know how to react. But that first taste of cake is so adorable on every little child. It's cool.
Yeah, definitely part of the plan. Gonna taste, finally get a taste of that sugar. So.
Gotta put a cake in front of a baby. Yeah, they're sitting there and just like not knowing what's going on, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever had, and it's all mine. Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Mommy never lets me do this, and it'll never happen again. But
no, boy. Yeah, I know, right? Because it's like just like grab the handfuls. Because it's fun. He's like eating, he's like learning how to eat and taste. And it's so much fun to watch him like taste different things. And
I know.
Oh, it's so good.
It's a great time of your life. This is a great time, Daron. I'm just really happy that we had this time to talk and get to know each other. And man, I know our fans of the podcast are just enjoying it as much as I am getting to know you. But more than that, I think it's inspiring to hear somebody talk about how they had goals and set goals at a very young age and really achieve them, and really have gone out and done exactly what you wanted to do. And nobody, and having said that, I understand that nobody gets it exactly how they want it and all that kind of stuff. But man, you just seem to be in such a great place. So congratulations, Daron.
Well, thank you so much. This was really lovely. Thank you for, inviting me to chat on your podcast.
You bet. And Tom, as we always say, Tom's not here. Well, I'll do it myself. Animate from the heart.
If you like what you just saw, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Pencilish Studios.